History can happen in a flash. It can strike without warning.
Wow! Big knee from Zingano!
It can make legends, while contenders challenge destiny. On February 28th, history will be written.
What a moment. Wow. What an incredible moment.
Here we go!
Welcome to another edition of Bookie Beatdown, your one-stop shop for all the analysis, advice, and predictions you need to make money in the world of mixed martial arts gambling. I'm Paul Shaughnessy. Joining me, as always, we have Cody Saftik, the only man who has watched the full catalog of felony fights.
Yeah, I watch a lot of bad fights, and those ones rank amongst the highest.
You speak pretty highly of them, but, you know,
it's
those
like
are...
watching the Josh Neer viral video in a competitive
We
loop.
won't even get onto that. Let's get into the action here. We have UFC 184 goes down this Saturday night from the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. In the main event, Ronda Rousey puts her bantamweight strap on the line against Cat Zingano. Rousey's a minus 900 favorite with the comeback on Zingano plus 600. Let's be honest. There really isn't anybody who's even came remotely close to exploiting Ronda Rousey. Nobody's really giving Cat Zingano a chance in this fight. I'm not one of the people to give Cat Zingano a chance in this fight either. But even like lines like inside the distance for Rousey's like minus 450. There's not very much value to be had here. We're coming off of a week where dogs were hitting like crazy. I think people are potentially going to start just blindly throwing some money at this. But I do not think this is one of the spots to do that. I like Rousey winning. Biggest reason being Zingano's slow starter, takes a lot of damage in her fights. We saw it in her last fight against Amanda Nunes. She almost got finished in that first round.
She actually took a lot of beating against Miesha Tate as well.
Somebody of the skill of Ronda Rousey is going to close that fight out. And we've seen her really work on closing the distance in her last few fights. I like Rousey to win. I like her to win inside the distance. The line is a little bit crazy. I'm waiting to see how maybe some of the other props come out and what they look like, but I'm going to have to pass on this situation. There's just not enough meat on the bone for me. What about you? I
got to go with it, and I know we're coming off a week where, yes, so many underdogs hit, and you have to look at your favorites and say, well, what went wrong? Ronda Rousey's just one of those fighters in general, that it's hard to imagine what's going to go wrong. She has the heart to keep on fighting. She's got the cardio. She's got the striking. She's got the ground game. She's just got the endurance. She's really got it all. So I like Ronda Rousey here. For minus 900, is there good value? No. But chances are you're just going to put her in parlays with some other big favorites or some other people.
How much is that really going to add to you, though?
Well, I get that the whole minus 900 at 9-1, what are you realistically getting out of it? But it's going to add something, especially the more you put. I believe I put her on a parlay with another fighter who was minus 500. I believe Derek Lewis. And the two of them together, $100 wins you $33, so you get a third of your money. But what I'm saying is if you're confident in both of them, then you can make it happen. Inside the distance at minus 450, certainly better, but I remember this old parlay that me and a friend of mine, Ariel, works at Fight Network, used to do, and that's you just bet her to finish in the first round, you bet her to finish in the second round, and you bet her to finish in the third round. And you know that one of them will hit, and you'll have good odds. Now, I haven't seen the exact odds for those specific props, but the thing with Ronda Rousey is that we've seen anything from Cat Zingano is she's susceptible to getting finished early. And against Miesha Tate, by the second and third round, Tate was tired and Tate was hurt. And against Amanda Nunes was just very tired and then eventually got hurt. Ronda Rousey is as effective in the first round as she
saw that in the Tate fight.
As she would theoretically be in the fifth if she ever saw a fifth round. She keeps bringing it, and for that reason, I see her finishing Cat Zingano.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations. It's like Rousey is a lifelong martial artist. She's been doing this since she was a kid, and she had a long enough arm that her mom could try to armbar her on it. And Cat Zingano, she got into it because, you know, her former husband, I suppose, was running the gym. She was in school trying to be a translator for sign language, I believe. Right. And she did it to get into shape. And she's like, wait a second, I'm actually pretty good at this. I'm a natural athlete. She's a great athlete. She picks up things really quickly. But it's like you're comparing apples and oranges here. We've seen the tape of Ronda Rousey. I don't know what the guy's name is, her sparring partner or whatever, but she's just flipping this guy left, right, and center. Like, it's not like he's weightless. And this guy's probably like 160, 170 pounds, maybe even bigger. I just don't know how Zingano can stop Rousey from getting in, throwing her down, maybe going for the armbar. But she's been working on her striking so much that really, I don't even like buy sub or buy TKO parlays because she's really becoming a complete mixed martial artist.
If she can't get the submission, she'll go
I
for the knockout.
like your idea of round 1, round 2, round 3. If the math works out, maybe that's how you make some money on this fight. But otherwise, at minus 900, I have to pass. You're saying, if you're really confident about it, you can add it, but it's not going to really give you all that much more money. I guess you're running the risk. A lot of the biggest issue, I suppose, for Rousey is closing that distance. She does take a few shots.
Yes, we've seen the Miesha Tate fight, even the Sarah McMahon fight, she'll just walk through the punches. But she's never dazed by any of these punches. It's almost like when she's in kill mode, she doesn't feel the other punches coming off her. Prime Chuck Liddell used to be the same way. He could take the punch, he'll just walk right through it. I don't think Zingano has the stopping power to hurt her. The only thing that kind of makes me a little bit worried is that BJJ black belt, and a good BJJ black belt. And we've seen when Liz Carmouche was on Rousey's back, it's possible to get on her back. But even in that fight, Rousey just looks very calm. It's not well-known practice to try to fight the foot off with your open hand and to try to defend the choke. You need both your hands. She doesn't care. She just peels Liz's foot off. She really doesn't care.
Yep.
It's a face crank. She really also doesn't care. And as soon as she gets out of it, it's like, boot, Terminator,
It's like, this fight's
game
over.
time, and then it's back on.
Yeah.
I do like Zingano, but Zingano has proven in her last 2 wins that she needs to overcome adversity and finish strong. I just don't think that happens to Ronda Rousey. She's a winner, and she's going to win. I mean, it is what it is.
We stay in the women's bantamweight division where Holly Holm makes her promotional debut against Raquel Pennington. Holly Holm's a minus 900 favorite with the comeback on Raquel Pennington, plus 600. Obviously, the exact same odds as are being offered for one Ronda Rousey at this point. Would you say Pennington's a little bit of a better bet than one Zingano?
Yeah, for sure. It's like you mentioned, I don't really want to pick Ronda Rousey. I'd rather have a pass on that. It doesn't really make sense. Raquel Pennington is a good fighter. I mean, she's got the name Rocky, and that really means something. I know there's so many fighters named Rocky, but if you watch this girl, that's how she is. She's just rugged and durable, and she takes damage and keeps coming forward. Yep. And I really like that about her. And with Holly Holm, tailor-made to just kill a girl like this. Raquel Pennington was hand-chosen to fight Holly Holm. I do believe that. But that being said, she's got the mentality of I can walk through some of your punches and try to make this a dirty fight. She's coming off that win over by Bulldog choke. We know she's a physically strong girl, and she's trained with good, strong, physical male training partners for the majority of her career. So she could be a problem here for Holly Holm. Not necessarily says she wins, but she could definitely pose some problems.
Yeah, exactly. If she's able to maybe hold her up against the fence. We haven't seen Holly Holm on the ground really at all in her career. And obviously she's working on that at Jackson Winklejohn's, but really when you're head kicking most of your opponents, 6 or 7 opponents by relatively early stoppage. Actually, she's never finished in the first round, which
I know. I noticed that she finished in second and third. Pennington might be a decent bet to just survive the distance, but that being said, when she comes under fire,
you look at what the line may be like 1.5. Maybe she survives.
You see, if you're a boxing fan,
depending on what the odds are out on that one,
right.
that's something to look at.
I find it interesting in boxing. Sometimes you'll have a very good boxer, very good technician, good with his hands, good with his feet, and he will beat the majority of guys. But then eventually he'll fight just a brawler, and the guy just gets in there and just starts swinging. Can't beat him. We've seen it with Sergio, the Latin Snake Mora, couldn't beat Brian Vera. You don't really know why. It's just the way it plays out. This could theoretically play out like that. Raquel Pennington fancies herself a bit of a striker. She should not, by no means, stand and strike with Holly Holm. But she could make it a dirty fight. She could come in. She could swing her overhands, Ricardo Mayorga style, trying to chop at something, put her against the cage, maybe get a takedown, maybe try to work a submission. I've seen crazier things happen. And coming off that last weekend where it's all upsets, if you were to look at Holly Holm, this is the kind of underdog that could theoretically lose. And that makes her a dangerous bet. I'm avoiding her altogether. Am I putting small action on Pennington? Maybe a little bit, but I prefer her
Very
in more of
in
a counter move or DraftKings scenario. Pennington would have better value in a game like that than a straight up bet. So for me, I'm going to avoid this fight.
I'm interested to see what Pennington by submission would potentially come in at. If it's some sort of number that's completely ludicrous, like 12-1 or something like that, that's worth a small bet. I think it would be worth a small bet. Just that's the way I would see her potentially winning. She obviously could maybe grind out a 3-round decision, but
But
yeah,
also,
it'd be interesting to see what the price on that one is. All right, this is pretty much a pass type of situation. It's unfortunate, just the lines are so crazy on this.
I'll be making picks from there on, but the two
it's hard to make some money on it. Coming up, I swear, guys, we'll have some picks for you as we break down the rest of the main card from UFC 184 when Bookie Beatdown returns. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, this is a pretty rare situation where you got two guys, both of them coming off of 3 losses, going against each other in the octagon on a main card of a pay-per-view. But that's the breaks that we have, and I'm giving these guys a bit of a rough time. They've had some pretty rough runs here. But obviously we got Jake Ellenberger taking on Josh Koscheck. Jake Ellenberger can be had at -200. The comeback on Josh Koscheck +170. Ellenberger coming off of obviously that round 1 submission loss to Gastelum and round 3 TKO to Lawler and the decision loss to Rory McDonald back in Vancouver. Koscheck, we don't even really know what the hell he's been doing for the last couple of years.
Been training Chris Honeycutt.
Last time we saw him, he got KTFO by one Tyron Woodley.
Robbie Lawler before that.
Robbie Lawler before that. And split decision loss to Johnny Hendricks that a lot of people thought he won. So,
but I thought he lost to Mike Pierce. So, I mean, that's the game.
That's the game of MMA. Who do you like in this fight?
You know what? This is almost a mirror image. Both guys are very similar. Only one's younger and one Jake Ellenberger. Koscheck is the prototypical wrestler who's able to develop and come over to MMA. And I actually do like Josh Koscheck. Very athletic. But at 37, his athleticism's grinding down a little bit. He's not nearly as quick as he used to be. His punching power, I never really thought it was as good as people made it out to be. Jake Ellenberger's only one issue here is that he seems to be gun shy lately. And that's an issue
That's
for
the
him.
biggest issue.
I need him to swing and I need him to hit.
If I'm going to bet on Jake Ellenberger, what I want him to do is basically do exactly what Tyron Woodley did. Just go in there, guns a-blazing. The old Jake Ellenberger, the guy that we saw fight Diego Sanchez way back. Jake Shields, way back when. Like, guy just going for broke out there. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in a while. Now he's back at Rain Training Center after a stint at Glendale Fighting Club. But I just hope maybe that switch turns back over. Because if that switch turns back over, I like Ellenberger here.
To be honest, I think it does.
I don't. If it doesn't, he really needs this win. And as a 29-year-old guy, like, this is a very, very important fight for him in his career. Obviously, he has years to go still left in his career. Koscheck, maybe not as important. He's kind of got the name value. People know him from, his long litany of fights, on top of that being on The Ultimate Fighter at the beginning.
For a title.
You know what I mean? And he's 37, so if he loses, that's fine. But Ellenberger needs this fight. I'm hoping he comes in aggressive. I'm slightly going on Ellenberger's side here, but I'm not too confident about it.
I'm definitely going Ellenberger here. I like Josh Koscheck, I really do. But unfortunately, if his wrestling's not going to be able to get the fight to the ground, then that's an issue for him. And if he's forced to stand and trade, I think that's a bit of an issue for him. He's kind of mechanical. I mean, Matt Hughes was out jabbing him, out punching him before he knocked him out. George flat out made him look stupid. And we've seen his punch resistance as he gets older is dwindling down a bit. What I take from Jake Ellenberger is he's not looked good in a number of years now. But the Kelvin Gastelum fight, he was getting his hands going. It really was. He was landing punches. He got a little over anxious, got taken down. I don't know why on earth he popped his head open to look at something and got choked out. But he didn't look all that bad. And I think he probably worked on his hands with Taverdian at Glendale. Probably said, I like my hands, want to work them, got taken down. Now he's back at Rain. He knows his hands are good. He's got to get back to his wrestling. He's been working very hard with Mark Munoz, who's also on this card. So I feel like maybe both guys peaking at the same time. And I feel like this is his fight. As you mentioned, you made a very, very excellent point. Josh Koscheck has name cachet. If Josh Koscheck loses and he gets cut, Bellator signs him tomorrow. World Series of Fighting signs him tomorrow. KSW in Poland signs him tomorrow. ONE FC, they want him to fight Askren. He can go places. He can do something. On top of all that, he owns that dethroned base camp gym in Fresno, California. He's training guys. He's got stuff to fall back on. Jake Ellenberger has nothing to fall back on. He has very little name value if you think about it. Would Bellator sign him to go fight Paul Daly? Is that something they're interested in? Maybe. Maybe World Series of Fighting lets him fight the Brian Fosters and Steve Carls of the world. But I don't think that's a good look for him. He doesn't own his own gym. He's only 29. He needs this, and he needs this bad.
All right, we remain in the welterweight division where we've got Alan Jouban as a minus 440 favorite. The comeback on Richie Walsh, or Filthy Richie Walsh. It's kind of tough to say. Plus 350. I can't understand this line. We're coming off of an event where people were overvalued. And Jouban, he got robbed against Warley Alves. He looked great against Seth Baczynski, knocked him out and very, very aggressively came across the cage. I understand that he's from LA. He's a model. So he's going to have like a fan support and everything like that around there. But minus 440. We're coming off of an event where Alcantara was a minus 900 favorite. And this line has actually continued to grow very slowly since it was released earlier in the week. I cannot, in good conscience, put any money on Alan Jouban here, and I'm putting small action on Richard Walsh.
I think the bookies are looking at it right now, that Jouban's fighting in a black house, and a number of fighters have been popped from black house for PED use. So maybe if Jouban's got the good stuff flowing through his veins, he can pull it off.
He's got that modeling career, so maybe he can afford them.
Of course he can. He's probably got sponsors who are like, you sleep with my daughter, I give you free supplements. It's like, all right, might as well. All jokes aside here, Alan Jouban is good. He's got power. We've seen him in the Baczynski fight, but he got wobbled in the Baczynski fight. So that's not something you ever like to see when you're putting down 440. And Richie Walsh, commend him very much so. I like him. He's a hardworking guy. At 26, he's only getting better. But he spent the last 2 weeks at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento. I think that's going to help him out a lot. I don't necessarily think that he goes in and beats Jouban, but he gives him trouble. I don't even think he gets finished in this fight. And we've seen us fighting against Kunamoto, who people were kind of big on him. He can hang. He can hang long enough to give
Kunamoto's
Jouban problems.
a good grinder, though. And we saw in Kunamoto's most recent fight with Neil Magny is that he was on the feet. He was out-dueled or whatever. But, he gets in tight and he holds on to you and he's scrappy and he's got decent grappling. So I can understand why that would be a tough matchup for Richard Walsh because kind of what Richard Walsh wants to do to you.
I just think at 26 years old, he's getting better. Because when we seen him on The Ultimate Fighter, Australia versus Canada, he was one of the few Australians who looked okay. Yep. And a lot of people that were favoring any Australian to win were big up on him to win. And when he made his UFC debut against, I believe, Chris Indich, he had spent a lot of time in Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand honing his skills. Now he's spending time at Team Alpha Male honing his skills. This is a guy that's traveling the world, trying to get better, really trying to take his stuff seriously. At 26, this is a career for him. Alan Jouban, I'm not saying he's not doing that. He's based out of LA, knows everybody in LA. People probably wanted to hang out with him and party with him. And, I know Alan. And,
hey, Alan, can you get me some tickets?
Hey, Alan, you want the supplements? My daughter's free this weekend. Like, you don't know what his schedule is like. Richie Walsh with that big old filthy beard, he's a fighter's fighter. And like I said, I'm not necessarily saying he wins this, but I'm saying that he has a distinctive chance. And for that reason alone, I got to keep away from Jouban. I do.
So you're passing on Jouban.
I don't want to say pass because we've already passed
any action on Walsh at all in this fight?
Yeah, small action. Small action on Walsh.
Okay.
He's a dog with some game.
And off we go to the lightweight division where we've got Tony Ferguson taking on Gleison Tebow. Tony Ferguson is a minus 200 favorite with the comeback on Tebow, plus 170. I like Ferguson here, man. I know Tebow is one of those matchups that you can never really get ready for him because he's so strong. It's such a grinding pace, but Ferguson's jiu-jitsu's been impressive. His striking has improved leaps and bounds. This is a guy on the rise, and I think at minus 200, I don't even think that's a bad price. So sign me up for T-Ferg.
I actually don't like it for this exact reason, is that Ferguson has kind of shown that he doesn't have much ring IQ. I keep seeing him dive for submissions that are not there, and that really bugs me about him. That Danny Castillo fight.
Is that going to get him in trouble against Gleison Tebow?
It will, because you're not going to submit Gleison Tebow, and the guy's built like a fire hydrant. So let's just say theoretical situation.
Tebow doesn't really finish guys, though.
He doesn't finish guys, but he can win the 2 rounds. And we've seen the same thing with Norman Park.
He can lie on top of you, you're right.
Norman Park tried to take him down and just couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And then in the striking exchanges, not much goes on. Tebow's so short and stocky, that a guy like Tony Ferguson stands in front of him and throws hands. This is his fight to win. Ferguson's got good hands. Unfortunately, he's so big into this Eddie Bravo jiu-jitsu right now that he's diving for risky submissions.
Yeah.
If he pulls guard with a Doris or a Kimura or something and has Tebow on top of him, try to get a fire hydrant off you, man. It ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
So you like Ferguson in this fight, but you're not too confident it doesn't.
If Ferguson's odds were lower than 210, which I think is just too much for me, plus 170 on Gleison Tebow, I've been burnt by Tebow in the past, and
He's coming off of 3 wins, though. That's a lot of wins for Tebow.
And the most
this seems like
decisions of any fighter currently on the UFC roster. So you're playing with hot fire when you're betting with or against this guy. And in this case, dog or pass. So let's go dog.
All right, Cody's going with Tebow here. I'm going with Ferguson. Don't go anywhere. More Bookie Beatdown coming right up. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, off we go to the middleweight division where we have Mark Munoz as a minus 320 favorite with the comeback on Rohan Carneiro plus 260. Who do you got here?
This one's crazy because Jukaro, Rohan Carneiro, just won a one-night tournament like a couple months back.
Yeah, Battlefield.
Beat 3 guys in one night, 170 pounds. And now he's jumping up to 185 to get himself some hot fire from Mark Munoz.
He beat Brock Larson. Brock Larson's kind of fought at both levels before in the past.
Fair enough. But Brock Larson's almost like a prototypical version of Mark Munoz. You know what I mean? A little smaller. He's got good wrestling chops, good submission game, decent ground and pound. Striking's not great, but he's working on it. This one seems to be Mark Munoz's fight to lose, really. He's just so much bigger. I'd like to see him get back to his wrestling. I mean, this is a California State. I believe he's in the Hall of Fame for California State in wrestling. You know, he's got good wrestling chops, but he fell in love with his striking game, and I think that's almost hurt him a little bit in the past. He's been embarrassed his last couple of outings, so he needs to get back and look good here. So I got to go Mark Munoz to get back in the win column.
Yeah, Mark Munoz, in his defense, his last 3 losses are Mousasi, Machida, and Weidman, the champ. So literally 3 of the top 5 guys.
Yeah.
You got a very decisive win over one Tim the Barbarian Boach at UFC 162. So I think he gets back on track. But then this always begs the question: he's 37 years old.
I have 2
coming off of
questions.
two crushing defeats. Is he ever going to get back on track here? This is obviously the fight to tell us whether he's going to get back on track. You know, we saw Frank Mir, guy coming off of 4 straight losses. He got back on track. I don't know how I feel about laying minus 320 on him. I think Munoz gets the win, but it seems a little bit high.
Seems
a little bit high because we don't know. You know, he's got his own gym. He's got so many different things that he's doing now. He's worrying about getting his other fighters ready for their respective fights.
Right.
So how much time is he actually putting into himself these days? That's the real question that I have. I do think I do think Mark Munoz comes away with the win here, but I'm not rushing to the bookie to lay like big money on him here.
Well, it's tough to put money on a guy that's been finished dramatically both times, but as you mentioned, this is against the best guys.
Best of the best.
The biggest question I have for him is his mentality, because this is a guy at one point in time who'd been training a lot with Anderson Silva and mentioned the fact that I'd like to fight Anderson Silva for the title, and that was a big thing at the time because Anderson Silva kind of felt betrayed, and he was the current champ, and people were talking about Mark Munoz being a guy that could potentially fight for the belt. Now those talks are gone, and you'll remember this. He gets really fat between fights because he gets down on himself and he gets depressed, and we've seen him weigh as much as 250 pounds, and that's a big thing for me. And as you get older, your athleticism kind of dies out.
And then he came back against Boach and looked great.
Looked great because when he's motivated, he can get on track, and when he's not motivated and he balloons out of shape, and then it's almost you're fighting 2 fights. You're fighting one against the scale, and you're fighting one that same night. So now I don't know. And against Rohan Carneiro, who's probably not cutting a whole lot of weight to begin with, it's a bit iffy. The difference here is that Rohan Carneiro's a little older himself. He's a guy that's already done one tour in the UFC, got released. Had he not won that one-night tournament, probably would have taken him a full 12 months to get 3 wins.
Or maybe we would never have seen him again.
Maybe we would have never seen him again. So do I like the line at minus 320? No. But do I like Mark Munoz to maybe get back into his top 15 status? Yes. So I'm going to go with the Filipino wrecking machine.
Off we go to the bantamweight division where we've got Norfumi Kid Yamamoto as a minus 340 favorite with the comeback on Roman Salazar plus 280. We're just talking about questions. What have you been doing, and what have you been doing lately? Kid Yamamoto hasn't fought in 3 years.
So
February 26, 2012, he got subbed in the first round by Vaughn Lee. Vaughn Lee, not even in the organization anymore. Obviously, this is a fight that is set up for Kid Yamamoto. This is maybe one of the...
Wasn't the Vaughn Lee fight set up for Kid Yamamoto?
Of course, but this is one of the, one of the worst guys that they probably have on the roster at 135 pounds. They had to give Roman Salazar a second fight after he took Mitch Gagnon on short notice there.
Short notice,
but minus 340 is insanity. All we know about what Kid Yamamoto's been doing the last 3 years is doing great work with Horiguchi and getting him ready at the Crazy Bee gym. But has he really been working on himself, or has he just been being a coach? Maybe he comes back refreshed, and we see the Kid Yamamoto of old. But this is a guy who was on a 3-fight losing streak before this 3-year layoff. So minus 340 is complete insanity.
Also,
what's your take?
I believe 34, to me anyways, when I see a fighter at 34, depending on how much more in tear, that's almost like the last prime years of your career. You take off between 34 and 37, how much does the body actually regress at that point? I'm going to go with him here. He's well known for his wrestling pedigree, actually. Very good wrestler. And then was able to eventually incorporate the striking. And that's what made him such a force to be reckoned with in Japan. He is not the same guy. He's nowhere near the same guy. But as you mentioned, Roman Salazar is pretty bad. And the fact that they're setting him up, Kid Yamamoto, they want this guy to get a win. He was briefly linked with a fight with Uriah Faber in Japan.
Exactly.
The guy lost 3 fights in a row, hasn't fought in 3 years, and you're linking him to a fight with Uriah Faber?
You got to figure Kid Yamamoto wins this fight. They put him on the Filipino card with Frankie Edgar.
And I think that is what they do. They need him to beat somebody.
And Uriah Faber.
Roman Salazar only just started training full-time for this fight. I mean, prior to that, he had a full-time job. I know a lot of guys that fight in the UFC do have a full-time job.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is that at 9-3, his record's not great. He got smoked by Mitch Gagnon. It wasn't like a Mike Delatorre who comes in short notice, does good for himself, loses.
No, he got iced
smoked,
in the
man.
first round.
He got smoked. And I think that's just one of those. When he fought Gagnon, I remember a lot of people telling me, I don't know enough about this Salazar. I'm going to pass on that fight. Well, after seeing the Gagnon fight, I think I know enough about him that he's just not very good. He trains out of Arizona, and he's not even at one of the big gyms. Just don't know how far he's going to push it. I normally would maybe say pass because the iffy. There's a lot of passes on this card, so you're going to have to take a chance at some point. Kid Yamamoto.
But the price. Minus 340. The price is not right. The price is not right here, I don't think.
Yeah. The fact that he lost to Von Lee. That is what sticks out in my mind as,
that's the last time we saw him, 3 years ago.
But Von Lee's got a ground game. And I'm not saying Roman Salazar doesn't, but I've not seen anything in my mind that sticks out as, oh, wow. Von Lee, when he loses, and he often does lose, he shows some glimpse of, this guy can go a little bit. In Salazar's case, he really got blown out by Mitch Gagnon. And I read the thing on him. They were just like, oh, well, you looked awful against Mitch Gagnon. What, do you have any comments to that? And he's like, he didn't care. He was just like, well, I took that fight on short notice. Making weight was the only thing I care about. I'm happy I made weight. Well, what about the fact you got crushed? I don't care about that. I made weight. All right, dude. Well, I hope you get crushed again here. So I'm going to go with Kid Yamamoto. I'm going
to go with Kid Yamamoto as well, but I wouldn't.
I agree. Am I safe with
Don't
it?
be emptying out your bag. Like we're one card off of UFC Fight Night 61 here, right? So, don't be crushed on this one, guys. All right, let's move on to the welterweight division where we've got Diego Lima and Tim Means in a dead heap. Total pick'em here. Who do you like?
This one is going to be fun. It'll be a fun fight. Both guys kind of match up well with each other in that they like to throw punches in bunches. The success for here, the key to the win, would be Diego Lima trying to get a takedown because Tim Means not great at stuffing the physical takedown. He got exploited in a couple of his UFC fights, but you don't want to stand with this guy for an extended period of time. And the fact that Diego Lima having that knockout loss pretty quickly, he should just avoid the ground game altogether. But to be honest, kind of leaning Tim Means here.
I am leaning actually Tim Means as well. One thing that actually, you're not going to find it on a tail of the tape or anything like that, but is that his brother, Douglas, had to drop out of his fight with Paul Daly. Which, if his brother's injured, that's got to be his number one training partner when they're at the gym together. So that is my biggest worry about Diego Lima is that, at American Top Team Atlanta, he's not training at the top level that he has become accustomed to, and then the level that has probably got him to where he is in his career right now.
One of the biggest bets that I ever made, Diego Lima was fighting for Maximum Fighting Championship in Alberta, the MFC, and he was fighting a guy by the name of Nathan Coy, just a hard-nosed wrestler. I bet a lot of money on Nathan Coy. He's a heavy underdog. Destroyed Diego Lima. Took him down, pounded him out. I've never been sold in this kid as much as I've been sold in his brother. Yep. He's one of those, the same last name. They've got to be equally as good. No, that's not how it happens. Case in point, Jake Ellenberger and Joe Ellenberger. Well, Jake's starting to look more like Joe these days, but hopefully he gets back to, regular form.
Yeah. Back to the juggernaut.
Back to the juggernaut. What I'm saying here is that you're not necessarily going to be as good as your sibling. In this case, Diego Lima is talented. I just don't think he's as talented as Douglas. And when I look at Tim Means, coming off a pair of wins, his last win split decision, I don't know how the hell that's a split decision. I thought he won fairly cleanly. But the thing is that he's working on his takedown defense. He's got big wins. This is a guy that caused Bobby Green to quit on his stool and say, no more. He's got such a vicious elbow game that he's the kind of guy that could break you. And Diego Lima's proven to be the kind of guy that can get broken. So we need the dogs that are going to win. We need to figure out dogs that have good value.
This is a pick-em, though.
No, I know, but when you look at this card, it's mostly big favorites, right? I get that this one's a pick-em. It could swing both ways, but Diego Lima is one of those guys that people seem to be big on because of his time in the Ultimate Fighter, because his brother's a Bellator champion, because he's kind of got this rapport, because he's out of a big gym, although it's American Top Team Atlanta. Timmy's doesn't have any of that stuff, but he's a fighter's fighter, and assuming he doesn't KO himself in the sauna, he should be good.
Cody and I both on the Dirty Bird to get it done in LA. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will break down the rest of UFC 184 when Bookie Beatdown returns. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, off to the heavyweight division we go, where we've got Derek the Black Beast Lewis as a minus 475 favorite, taking on Ruan Potts at plus 380. If you ever listened to this podcast before, you know that Cody has a certain attitude towards Juan Potts, so I'm just going to let you take it away.
Yeah, don't ever put money on this guy. In fact, I like that he's in the UFC because I know I can always make money betting against him.
He may not be after this fight, though.
No, I'd assume he's not. But he's like my Khabib Nurmagomedov, the opposite way. Yeah. You bet on Khabib because you know you're gonna make money when you bet on Khabib. You know you're gonna make money when you bet against Juan Potts. He's just not very good. And Derek Lewis, good God, I mean, he's the epitome of power, and he's gonna knock him out
by the sword. He dies by the sword.
And
he obviously is coming off.
He's
obviously coming off of a loss against Mitrione, but before that, just completely iced Guto Inasench and Jack May. Juan Potts finished by Anthony Hamilton. Anthony Hamilton is not the biggest finisher for a heavyweight, especially.
He finished him with body shots on the ground. And he was punching him in the body on the ground.
And so Pelele
good God,
just destroyed him as well.
Listen,
this is the type of fight like Derek Lewis, round one.
He's my lock.
He's
my lock of the week, baby.
Yeah,
Let's go for Derek Lewis. Listen, I'm sure if you're related to Juan Potts and you're listening to this, my apologies. But he's in for a rough one. And also, he only flew out.
Sorry to everybody in South Africa.
He only flew out from South Africa yesterday, and it was like a 15-hour flight or something. So the fact is like you probably should have came out last week. You're coming out quite late. Derek Lewis coming off a loss at 30 years old, needs to get back on the winning track. And stylistically, the way this one matches up, so I'm going to bet Derek Lewis, and I'm going to get additional value by betting Derek Lewis by knockout.
I couldn't agree with you more, but UFC Fight Night 61 still looms in my head. Obviously, somebody's probably gonna tweet us or write to us and be like,
"What about Matt Dwyer?
Juan Potts just ruined
He's right.
you."
They're right.
Like,
They're
yeah,
right.
You're right.
These things sometimes.
I'm willing to take the risk that Juan Potts will not ruin me. I'm with you as well. Derek Lewis, round one, KO, whatever will make this price a little bit better, but I'm all in on the Black Beast here. Off we go to the lightweight division where we've got James Krause taking on Valmir Lazaro. James Krause is a minus 175 favorite with the comeback on Lazaro plus 155. Give me Krause in this situation. I actually like the price here. Krause has fought way higher level of competition, or what we have seen. Decision loss to Masvidal. Masvidal's a top 10 guy. Beat Jamie Varner, but that was Jamie Varner with his ankle. But he was doing well against Varner before that. And then obviously there was the groin shots.
That shouldn't have been a TKO loss for him. I think those were belt line, and I don't know. I don't think he lost to Bobby Green.
Either way, that was such a weird situation that went on there. So take that loss with a grain of salt. Valmir Lazaro, all we ever seen from him is a loss to James the Texecutioner, I believe. Yeah. The James Vick, and minus 175 for a guy who's been in there with, that was just three fighters that I've named, but Sam Stout and other fights escape me at this one. He has fought a lot more guys
between
at
Bobby
this
Green,
level.
Masvidal, and Stout, you're right. Top guys.
Top guys. We know what we're getting with James Krause, and I think at minus 175 against a complete question mark in Valmir Lazaro, I like the odds, so give me James Krause.
Well, see, I liked Vladimir Lazaro prior to him making his UFC debut. He seemed to, on paper, have the goods, and even on some of the tape that I watched online, he seemed to be good. But that James Vick fight really sticks out of my mind as just the sloppiest fight I've ever seen. If it was just simply a loss to James Vick, I wouldn't care too much. James Vick's good. But it was a very, very sloppy fight. And if we've seen anything from Krause, is that he's sharp, he's technical. And I'm a little worried that he's basically the leader of his gym, getting guys like Tim Elliott ready and all that. I'm a little worried that maybe nobody's taking care of him. But I got to put that out of my mind. I need dogs in this card to win, and I realize he's not one of the dogs, so I'm worried that maybe this is a dog or pass situation, but he's too sharp. Lazaro's good, but he's a little too wild, and he's going to leave himself exploited.
And finally, we've got two tough Latin America contestants taking on each other. We got Macio Follin, minus 155 favorite, taking on Alexander Torres, plus 135. This is one of those types of fights that really starts to beg the question of, the line between being a UFC fighter and being a regional fighter is.
Oh, that line no longer exists.
That's besides the point. Macio Follin, I believe his record is 9-4. Seems to have fought the higher level of competition. Alexander Torres, 2-1. You have anybody that you really like in this fight? Give me Macio Follin, or maybe give me the dog. I'm not sure. These, I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch Tough Latin America. It's not even in the language that I speak, so it would be hard without. And I'm not going to sit there and read subtitles for 13 episodes. That's besides the point.
Man, you never watched Al Batal? It's pretty good.
I missed it, yeah. What was that?
It was the Arabic, basically the Ultimate Fighter in Abu Dhabi.
I missed it. Either way, I'm going to pass on this because I'm not going to lie, I don't know enough about either one of these guys.
Yeah. Well, this might be stupid on my part, but I'm going with the dog, Alex Torres.
All right. Why?
Both of them were on Tough America, as you already mentioned.
Yep.
But with Follin, he was a boxer. He's 4-0 as a pro boxer, and he's also a national champion at Taekwondo, black belt Taekwondo.
Ooh.
On the show, you got knocked out.
Sounds like you're selling him.
I'm going to sell both of them and tell you why they're awful. On the show, this supposed stand-up specialist got KO'd in the second round. He never won a single fight on the show. Now we got Alex Torres, two-time Colombian state wrestling champion.
What does that even mean?
On the show,
I don't think Colombians are wrestling powerhouses.
No, by no means. You're right. But what I thought was funny is the stand-up knockout guy got knocked out and the wrestling grinder guy got submitted. But I'm taking
Tough Latin America.
Yeah, I'm taking this one back old school. Wrestler versus striker. I'm taking the wrestler. Follin at 9-4. That's kind of worrisome because how'd you lose to 4 guys on the regional scene, bud? Like, that's not good. And the fact that you're a boxer, you've been training your boxing, you're from Mexico. Mexicans they're not known for grappling. He's a boxer. He's a stand-up guy. I know that. Against his Colombian counterpart, I get maybe the wrestling level is not big in Colombia, but he should have enough to secure the takedown, and I don't assume this boxer is going to have the submission off his back. I'm a little surprised that the bookie actually made him the favorite, but no, it doesn't really bother me. I'm going to go with my boy here, Alex Torres, and hopefully get the win.
All right, Cody likes Alexander Torres here. I am passing on the first fight of UFC 184. Coming up, we'll break down the whole card from a fantasy MMA standpoint with counter move and DraftKings picks. We've got all of that and more coming up on Bookie Beatdown, so stay close. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, now we're going to delve into a new segment. We premiered it last week, and I had a lot of fun with it. So here we go. This is Fantasy MMA. And so Fantasy MMA, it's not just straight picks. You're looking for performance. So if somebody knocks somebody out, obviously early, you get a bonus. You get points for significant strikes, takedowns, reversals, so on and so forth. So if they just go in there and lay and pray, you're going to get those 3 takedowns, but you're not going to get much for the whole praying aspect of it. You want action fighters. You want people who are going to ice the other person in the first round or who you think are going to. So why don't you get us started with your counter move team here first?
Start with my counter move team. This one's probably obvious to everybody playing counter move, but you gotta have Ronda Rousey. I get she's expensive, but
she likes finishing fights in the first round.
Even if she doesn't finish in the first, she finishes early. Yeah. And we've seen with the submissions, and she's got the striking that she's versatile. So she's got multiple ways to win this fight. She likes to finish early, and her opponent, Kat Zingano, not necessarily saying that she's been finished, but she's looking maybe susceptible to being finished. So for that one, I got to go Ronda Rousey. Second up, going counter move here. I got Holly Holm. I wasn't trying to get all the most expensive people on the same team, but when I realized I could fit them all on the same team, it made sense. Holly Holm's either going to get the knockout of Raquel Pennington, or she's so much better with her hands that she might just land significant strikes.
Yeah, it would be like a Marion Renault
long.
versus Alex Dufresne. It would be
Just
one of
land-
those situations where she just ices her from pillar to post, and,
It's like,
and you get lots of points.
I landed 120 significant strikes at half a point for significant strikes. That's 60 points right there, and then who knows? Maybe she drops and gets some points. Maybe whatever it is. That's a high output person. Now we've got Jake Ellenberger. At $5,000, he was maybe a tad bit overpriced. But the fact is he's got the ability to maybe knock out Josh Koscheck in the first.
And he's hungry.
If this one goes 3 rounds and he fights him the way he did with Rory, I'd be going, no, come on, man, throw something.
I think he's going to have to come into this fight a lot more aggressive. I think he will, too.
I think he realizes that. He knew he had Gastelum in trouble, and he got a little too antsy, so this time I think he plays it correctly. He gets the knockout. If he does, I like it. Now I'm going with Derek Lewis. I like the value with him here. $4,900.
That's a great deal.
He was cheaper than Ellenberger, and he's a guy that I'm guaranteeing will get the first round knockout. So with Ellenberger, it's like, is he going to knock him out in the first or the second? I don't know. Is Ronda Rousey going to finish in the first or second? Yeah, probably. Is Holly Holm going to finish in the first or second? Yeah, I'd like to think so. Is Derek Lewis going to finish in the first? Yeah, of course he is. That's almost like the sure guy. So very much so going Derek Lewis. And then now that I've spent some big money, I've got the 3 most expensive players. I went Rowan Carnero, $4,100. As we talked about already in the podcast, Mark Munoz should beat him, but we don't really know what version of Mark Munoz we're getting. Rowan Carnero he's a proven veteran. He's an older guy. He fights out of a good gym. He's a leader. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He might be able to survive. Maybe he gets a couple sweeps. Maybe he stuffs a couple takedowns, a couple significant strikes. Hey, maybe he goes for a submission. But what I need is him just to score a little bit, and the other one should carry the bulk of the points. Yeah,
I pretty much tailed you on most of that, or didn't tail, but by fluke, I ended up with very similar.
Not a fluke. I would assume most
similar team. I have
have
Rousey, Holm, Lewis, and then Masio Fullen, because he's a Taekwondo champion, potentially. Maybe
Fair
an
enough.
early little knockout on Fight Pass there.
Fair enough.
And Filthy Rich Walsh, why? Because I had to find somebody cheap.
Players.
And $4,400, the price was right, I suppose. All right, off we move to DraftKings. Price is a little bit different. Obviously, we talked about it last week. The price on DraftKings is like the guys that you want on your team, really, really expensive. Guys you don't want on your team, very, very cheap. So and there's not very many people in that middle area, right? Like you're not getting Derek Lewis for cheap on there. So
Derek Lewis was very expensive on DraftKings. So
yeah, exactly.
You obviously have to switch up the game plan a little
My lineup here, I'm not even in love with this, to be perfectly honest. I've got Rousey, Holm, Carnero, Salazar, and Richie Walsh.
That sounds rough, man. I'm not going to lie. That sounds real rough.
I need some dogs to come through on that one. That's for damn sure. Rousey and Holm are both really expensive. I may actually tailor, may get one Holly Holm out of there and see how I can fix up Salazar. Salazar is the guy who's just staring me dead in the eye right now.
Sure, but I believe Derek Lewis is cheaper than Holly Holm, so you might be able to do something where you take off Holly Holm.
It's not, though, because you don't have that middle.
Derek Lewis is $1,260, so, I mean, he is expensive on his own.
Yeah, you get 800 more, so say Salazar, you need somebody for 84, but there's nobody in that price range, right? So it's very tough. You almost...
Well, I'll tell you who I went.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, and I have the same thing. What I've noticed with
I'm in love with my counter move team. I do not like my DraftKings team. But, everybody has the same disadvantage or advantage, however you want to look at it. So it all works out in the end.
It seems to be easier to fit the guys that you want on your counter move team than the DraftKings. So for DraftKings, I went Ronda Rousey, obviously. I couldn't get Holly Holm and Derek Lewis the way I did for my counter move team. So I decided to take off Holly Holm and go Derek Lewis. I've already mentioned this one. Now, I need some cheap players. So I went Diego Lima for $10,000, Richie Walsh for $7,400, and Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington, the cheapest person on the card.
What if she gets iced in the first minute?
It could happen.
Then you lose, Cody.
Right, but look at it with Jessica Andrade, for example. When Raquel Pennington fought Jessica Andrade, it was a split decision, and it was wild. And Jessica Andrade threw everything in the kitchen sink, and Pennington takes it, and she's bleeding, and she's going for takedowns, and then there's slinging leather. And a dirty fight like that, even if Pennington loses against Holly Holm, if she can land some strikes, maybe get a takedown, maybe just last a couple rounds and get some points, she should be fine. The one thing I'd like to point out to the fans back here is that On both of my teams, I used every single dollar imaginable. That's not necessarily the way to go.
You don't have to do that. No, you have to pick people that you like and be close to that.
On my DraftKings team, I went with Diego Lima for $10,000, but for $300 or $400 cheaper, you could get his opponent Tim Means. Yeah. And to be honest, I think they're going to score pretty similar. But as we talked about, we like Tim Means more. Then maybe go Tim Means. Yeah. I thought because Diego Lima has the takedown ability, maybe he scores a little bit of additional points there. But it's a toss-up. So.
All right, that's enough of fantasy MMA for Counter Move and DraftKings. If you haven't done it before, it's a lot of fun, so I would definitely suggest you try it out. Coming up, we'll get right back to the straight picks, the way that we like it, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. All right, we are just about out of time, but before we go, we got to give you our picks of the week. Had a bit of a rough week last week with UFC Fight Night 61. Hoping to get back on track here. So, Cody, who's your guy?
Oh, very simple. It's not necessarily who's my guy, as much as who's not my guy. Juan Potts in his UFC debut. My pick of the week was against him. In his last fight against Anthony Hamilton, my pick of the week against him. Seems like it's tradition that I'm going to make my pick of the week against Juan Potts. I'm going with Derek Lewis. And in fact, if something happens between now and the actual event, let's say Derek Lewis pulls out, let's say they have to replace him with a wet paper bag, I'm still going to bet against Juan Potts and believe that if the wet paper bag can get on him, he will not be able to fight his way out of it. So I'm going to go with Derek Lewis on this one.
I'd be interested to see what the line on that wet paper bag would be as well. In that, I like Derek Lewis as well. But my pick of the week is the James Krause. James Krause taking on Valmir Lazaro. We've seen James Krause. He's fought the much better competition in his career. He's a real technician. He's getting better, and he never really looks out of sorts, even in the fights that he loses against higher level competition. Valmir Lazaro was very, very sloppy in a fight against James Vick, who is also pretty sloppy in the lightweight division. So I like Krause to get it done here, and minus 175. I think the price is right as well. But that's all the time that we have for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. So for Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.